Well, welcome to another episode of Senior Travel Adventures. And today I have a very special guest with me, Jeremy Perrin with Camino Ways. And as I've mentioned on several of my episodes so far and in my blogs, I will be undertaking the final stage of the Camino de Santiago from Sevilla, Spain to Santiago de Compostela in October, which is when we're going to be airing this episode. So thank you so much, Jeremy, for joining me this morning.
Thank you, Debbie. No, I'm very happy to be here, chatting about the Camino, which we do quite a lot with in Camino Ways. We just a bit of background. Camino Ways has been around for 15 years now, so it's very exciting. We love our job, we love what we do, and we love the people who come and walk the Camino with us. So again, thank you very much. Delighted to
Yeah,
talk to you and all
no,
your supporters.
I am so glad to have found you for the support that I'm going to need, and we'll talk about that a little more maybe at the end. But for someone who's never heard of the Camino de Santiago, in fact, until last year, I had not. How would you describe the experience that goes more than just like a long walk?
Yeah, well, I suppose like the best way to describe the Camino, first of all, that unfortunately it is a long walk and it comes from many places, but we'll have to jump back a little bit. So the Camino's been around since really about the ninth century, so 900 AD. And then jumping forward again very quickly, around the 80s, people started to get wind of it again. And a priest in northern Spain went around all the routes and painted the infamous yellow arrows or the famous yellow arrows, which people use
Yes,
as direction markers. And it started to open up again and become kind of common knowledge that this is a route that people can do. And the Camino is unique in the fact that while people walk in it, and many people now walk it, the logistics have built up around it. So the hotels, the hostels, the little cafes and bars and the towns, and they're extremely accepting of people who are walking the Camino. That would be the locals. And that
right.
is really kind of what the ethos around it. And so, yes, the Camino is a walk. It's
But
something
it's
so you get up in the morning, you do your walk, and you go to bed in the evening, you get up and do the same thing again. But I suppose what really adds to the experience is that whole history around it, the fact that the locals love you doing it. So they're very
yes,
accepting. I mean, I've walked the Camino, I've ended up milking cows. It's fascinating. And then the camaraderie and meeting the other people who are doing it. And there are people from all walks of life, all ages, all nationalities, all religions, and you will meet them on the route. And it's impossible not to. And
right.
that's really what's built up around it. So beyond the walk, there's so much more going on, and
Well, right. And
it's
for me,
fantastic.
that's exactly what the experience that is not just the actual like experience of meeting the people and doing all those things. And of course, I've watched all the movies that I can and a bunch of YouTube. I know that you offer a lot of different options. And for me, I picked one that I felt was appropriate for my first time. But is that the most popular? Is the Camino France's final stage?
And yes, that's the most popular, funny enough, is the last 100 kilometers into Santiago. And you can do that on the French way from Sarria, on the Portuguese way from Porto, Vigo, or there's many options. There's actually three options. And then you can come from the north on the English way from Ferrol. And then there's the regional way or the northern way from Lugo as well. So there's many options, but the two most popular are definitely the French way and the Portuguese way. You're doing the most popular Sarria, Santiago. And why do
Right,
people do that? Is because you have to walk 100 kilometers to get your certificate, and you
right.
do that within that, and you get your certificate in Santiago. So that's a big reason why people do it.
Are there any surprising trends over this past year that you've seen? I noted that one of the groups I belong to says how many pilgrims finish each day, and last week, a couple days, it was well over 3,000.
Yeah.
Um, so are there any surprising trends or things that you've seen?
The surprising trend is really the growing and everlasting popularity of the Camino. And you said you didn't hear about it last year. You've heard about it now. You've told your friends about it. I'm sure a lot of people come back to you and said, "Oh yes, the Camino. I've done it, or I know somebody who've done it." Or so everybody has a Camino story, or it's becoming that way. So it is becoming a bucket list destination. But yeah, I mean, it's the trend that it's maintained. Its popularity is always surprising to me.
if someone's thinking like right now they're watching this, and I have a wide audience watching this, yeah, I do have a fair number of people that are mature, senior age, but I do get others. If someone's dreaming about this and feeling nervous, is there something, one piece of advice you could give them as they think about taking that first step?
Yes, take the step. And taking the step is probably very apt in this conversation because it's all about walking, and you shouldn't underestimate the Camino and the distances you have to walk each day, and that's very important. But I think the great thing about us as a population of people understanding how we live, we also understand that mobility getting as we get older is still there, and walking is a very simple way of getting around, and we are very much able to do it. So preparation is key, and get out there and do your prep walks well in advance. You're still going to be tired, it's still going to be tough when you're on the Camino, but the more you do
Hmm.
before you travel, the better it is going to be for you. Uh,
Right. And
so yeah, I mean it's highly accessible, but train
yeah,
before you go.
training.
Yeah,
Yeah, preparation. Don't just think, I've run a couple marathons and many half marathons, and I can't tell you how often I would go out and people are just like, "Oh yeah, I'm going to run the marathon," and oh, that's brutal. It's brutal if you're not, even when you're prepped, it's brutal. So,
yeah,
some of the things I've read about or heard about now is, more about like the rocks. Walking on the cobblestones, rocks that can also tire you, and things like that. Of course, I'm taking trekking poles. I spoke with a couple who've done the Camino many times since 2014, and he's about to be 84. So yeah, it is, as long as you can physically move forward, there are ways to do it. And I have seen some things. I've even seen people, videos of people that are picking up the trash along the way. And I do feel like for me, that's one of the things I always prepped for all my triathlons and all my races and all of that. And so I'm not treating this any differently. I have had second thoughts about, um, doing more per day. Like maybe I could have done more per day, but then I remind myself that it's the journey I'm looking for, that I want to be able to have the time to go into the churches along the way and have time to sit at those cafes and talk to people. So I keep reminding myself it's the end result, not, it's not a race. It's not a race. It's a journey. So that's how I'm approaching that, is my perspective. So let's come to the big thing of packing. If you could only pack three things, what would you, besides your basics, obviously shoes and underwear, what three things would people not realize that they should really take to the Camino?
the first thing is a small towel. Now you don't want a big towel because it's going to take a room up in your backpack, and it's very important when you're packing. If you're going self-supported or with us, we do luggage transfer, so we pick up your main bag and bring it to your next hotel. But a little towel, little hand towel is brilliant. Why? So when you're walking, you mentioned lots of things there about going over cobblestones, little dirt tracks. I mean, your feet is the most important thing, really, and they need to be looked after. But you come across many little streams and little rivers when you're walking the Camino. Taking your shoes and socks off and putting your feet in these streams and rivers is probably one of the nicest and best experiences you will ever have in your life, and
Hmm.
um, and it should be done. But the most important thing it is when you're hiking is when you put your socks and shoes back on, your feet are very dry. And that's because it's damp feet and sweaty feet that actually will create blisters and cause blisters. So having dry feet is very important. Therefore, the small towel, absolutely vital. And very good, and gives you the opportunity to do that. The second thing is very good, kind of a lubricant cream, as in Vaseline or something like that. I'm not going to tell you why, but I'm sure you can imagine. You've done lots of marathons and half
Yep.
marathons, so I'm sure you understand that. But there are points in your body which can become, when you're doing lots of moving and
Hot
consistent
spots.
moving, you have hot spots. And
Hmm.
even on your feet, putting Vaseline on your feet is excellent as well. It prevents blisters. It just gives you that seal. So that's also
Hmm.
a pretty important thing. And I
Yes.
hate saying this for the last thing, but these days, and I'm sorry to say it, but these days it's always vital, and people always need it. Is your phone? I was about to curse there, but I didn't. But your phone, you don't need to have it turned on. You don't, you don't need to use it, but it's always good to have on you just in case. And that's just a
Right.
just in case. There's the obvious basic things, and I would like to mention, the clothing that you wear. The high tech clothing is very, very, very good these days. It wicks away all the moisture. It's excellent. And in the US, you have the REI stores.
I'm a planner and an organizer myself. So, of course, I'm constantly looking at, well, should I do this or should I do that? The small towel thing, didn't even think about putting that into my day pack. So you taught me something today that's very valuable because I will do that. I actually have a small microfiber towel that's quick dry that I've had for years from triathlon. My
Yep,
my trekking poles did not work though because they don't compact
collapse.
enough to go into my bag,
Yep,
so I had to buy new ones. But yeah, it's one of those things like I'm so excited, I'm nervous. Um, but I know it's going to be, I know it's going to be what I hope it will be. My biggest goal is to make it to the end with no visible injuries. I'm going to three different locations over a 28-day period. It's going to be a challenge,
yep,
to
yep,
pack. This
yep,
is not a fly-by-night activity.
yep.
Sometimes you can go on trips and you can go at the last minute. This is not one of those trips.
Yeah, we don't like, unfortunately, we can't convince people to go. Most people who come to us, they've already pretty much made their mind up.
Yes.
But we're here to give people support, answer the questions like we did a little bit today.
Hmm.
You just make sure they know what they're getting into and understand what it is like in the day to day and how the whole thing works logistically. I mean,
Well, thank you again for staying. I know it's in Ireland is a little bit later, but thank you so much for doing this with me today. As you know, I'm very excited about my trip, and I have read through my materials a million times, and I'll probably read through them a million more. We'll convene again.
pleasure, Debbie. Thank you very much, and best of luck with your travels.
Stay tuned as we speak to Lisa Watson for her part two of her recent trip to Africa. So when you're going through like these areas, you're in Jeeps, right? On small Jeeps with a certain
Yep.
number of people with the guide. So you're still in Nairobi, right? Are you have me
No,
when did
we're out of Nairobi by this
okay,
point, and we're traveling all over Kenya.
oh
Yeah,
Kenya now. All right, all
yeah.
right. And then where did you go?
So we were on our way to the Mara Leisure Lodge, which is on the Masai Mara, and there was another night in between that we stayed at a place called the Lomanira Splenda, and that they fed us all cultural food there. So we had some really good opportunities to taste some of the local foods that they have there. And I was quite surprised that one of the foods that they make is quite like our indigenous bannock that we have here at home in Canada.
I'm not familiar with
It
that.
was
What is
quite
that?
similar. It's kind of like a bread or a donut that they deep fry, and it's
Okay.
really good, especially when they serve it to you warm.
Oh yeah. Well,
So we love
nothing
that.
like
That was
fried
great.
warm dough.
Yeah, they call it mandazi, is what they call it. And at
Mandazi.
home here, the indigenous people in Canada call it bannock.
Oh, all right.
Yeah,
Yeah, maybe I saw it when I was at some places in Canada and like bakeries, but I I mean I saw some fried like dough. I guess I probably did look at the name of it,
yeah.
but that's pretty cool. So let's just talk a little bit about the accommodations that on this particular trip.
We did not have the comforts of home. This trip is not for the faint of heart. You
Okay.
need to be prepared to accept what you get. We were lucky that we had a really wide variety of accommodations along our route, that we switched it up between budget accommodations, mid-range, and luxury. So we had a chance to see a little bit of everything, but we weren't intense. We were in lodges,
Okay.
and but some of the lodges were a little more rustic than others. They all had sort of a common dining area where we would go to eat, and there was breakfast buffet in the morning kind of thing, and a sit down serve dinner at night. Most of
Oh,
them had pools, so we could
oh.
swim in our spare time if we wanted to, or you could wander around the property. There was all kinds of scenic places to walk around and hills to climb and look at the sights from the top of the hills, those kinds of things.
You were there in July. So what was their weather like in July?
It's perfect. The best time of year to go to Kenya is to go in July and August when the
Okay.
weather is not too hot and not too cool. Because I'm not a huge fan of intense heat. I had hiking pants on the entire time. Every morning we needed a hoodie
Oh,
because it was chilly in the morning. There's a very big, drastic drop in temperature from midday to nighttime. So the mornings are always very cool. And then by noon, you've got your hoodie off and you're in your short sleeve t-shirt.
your group like split up later. Is that further into the trip, or are you going as a group now to where from Kenya? What did you go to? Kenya, what did you go to?
Throughout the whole Kenya tour, we were all together as a group
Okay.
and we were just in two vehicles. And so we had five of us in each vehicle, plus our guide and driver.
Okay. And then
And
where did you head off to?
so the next place we went to is Lake Bogoria National Reserve. And so that was a lot of fun because getting into the reserve, there were cows all over the road. So we had to go through the cows, and that was kind of fun. And then it was kind of a four-wheel drive ride going
Okay.
off road and spotting zebras, impalas, some kind of a mystery antelope. We never figured out what it was called.
Hmm.
Lots of flamingos, thousands of them lining the lake. But this lake was very interesting. This was not initially a lake. This is a
Huh.
lake that came because of a flood. And because there was nowhere for the water to drain, it stayed. So you could see in the water some of the rooftops of what used to be buildings in the community that are now completely underwater, and all you can see is the roofs. And the lake itself is very alkaline and very saline, they said. So it's green, green, green.
Okay.
And
Nobody goes in it.
not like a pretty Caribbean teal color, it's very deep, deep green color, and nobody goes into it. It's fed by a couple of hot springs that are in the ground. And these hot springs, it's not, we thought, oh, we're going to the hot springs, let's pack our suits, right? It didn't turn out to be like that. These hot springs, you can't get in them. The water is beyond boiling.
So now, when you mentioned that this is a result of a flood, was there a lot of insects there?
Not a lot, really. We didn't have a lot of problems with insects throughout our trip at all, really.
Oh,
We
that's
all
good.
used insect repellent. And of course, in all of the lodges, they give you mosquito netting at
Okay.
night. And because we're going to Kenya, we're all on malarial pills, anti-malarials. And a few of us got maybe a half a dozen bites over the course of the month, but nothing drastic.
That's really good because as I mentioned earlier, I'm not a bug fan, and that is one of my concerns. When you mentioned malaria pills, do they require any kind of vaccination, like yellow fever or any of that before you go?
So it depends on where you're going.
Okay.
So we had to have yellow fever vaccinations for the five of us that went to Zanzibar after we were done Kenya. But the ones that
Okay.
were just coming to do Kenya didn't have to have yellow fever vaccinations.
Got it. Got it. And I can't believe that for this segment, our time is already coming to a close, but I am going to have Lisa on again, where she is going to talk about the rest of the trip. So stay tuned and we'll be right back.
Thinking about selling your business? Well, now could be the time. Hi, I'm Tom Burns, business broker with the Deal Firm. Since 2008, I've helped business owners navigate the selling process. I've sold all kinds of businesses, from restaurants to law firms, to music schools, and even a fishing resort. I'm a business owner myself, so I understand what this process means to you. Your legacy deserves the right hands. If you're ready to sell your business, call me at the Deal Firm today to write your next chapter.
Laguna Woods residents, there's a 70% chance you will need long-term care, yet Medicare doesn't cover it. Will you and your family be ready? Hi, I'm Mike Barrett, your Laguna Woods long-term care insurance specialist. I'm here to protect you, your family, your assets, and your lifestyle to secure your future. Call today for a free consultation at 949-525-0606.
But we're going to go ahead and finish up that extensive trip that you took earlier, that to Kenya and go over that. So, I think we ended with the lake, and so let's get started from there.
Okay. So from there, we were making our way towards the Masai Mara, which is where everybody wants to go when they do a Kenyan safari. And once we got to our lodge there, we stayed at the Mara National Park, and we went on a cultural trip to visit the Masai people. And we went into their village and learned all about their tribes and the way they live their lives. We learned that they're a nomadic people, and every 7 years they pack up the entire community and move it and relocate it to somewhere else.
How far do they go?
Well, it depends on how far they have to go to find good land, because after 7 years, the animals have kind of used up the land where they are, and then they relocate to have a better place for the animals, where the animals have food on the land.
I do know, as you mentioned earlier, that this is a very, very popular place to visit for people who are going to Africa, right?
Yeah, absolutely it is. It's the go-to place if you're going to Kenya, to be on the Masai Mara, right? So to meet the Masai people was really neat, and to learn about their culture and the way they live their lives. And they have some very unique things that they do in their tribe, which we really enjoyed learning about. And
Well,
so we got a whole song and dance demonstration of them doing their jumping, which was really neat.
so what was one of the really surprising things that you might have encountered that you didn't think about?
Well, we got a chance to go inside. The gal that took us through the tour was the wife of the chief, a
Hmm.
young gal, and she'd been married to him since she was 20. She was 26 years old. And we learned that when the men and women get together, the wives build the homes. And so each wife has her own home, and the men just go in between the homes, one night with one wife, night with the other wife, kind of thing. So they build these homes, and of course they all have sticks and mud and grass and stuff all for the walls, but the roofs are made, coated over the top with cow dung,
Oh my gosh.
because apparently cow dung is waterproof, and
Who
that's
knew?
why they do it. And every 3 or 4 years, they have to refresh it and put new cow dung on to keep the roofs from leaking.
What's that specific area called? Masai Mara?
The Masai, in
The
the Masai.
Masai. So you stayed at some type of hotel or
Yeah,
a lodge? I think they have a
yeah,
lot of lodges there, right?
yeah. It was a lodge. It's called the Mara Leisure Camp, where
Okay.
we stayed. So, and it's just outside basically the Masai Mara National Park.
How long did you stay there and what were your activities during your time there?
So we were there multiple days because we wanted to spend multiple days in the Masai Mara National Park. So the first day we went and did the tour of the Masai people in their village. The next day we went right into the national park and did our first game drive in there. And of course, a game drive is practically an all-day venture there, because you're so excited to see the animals, nobody wants to go home.
Every day you went out and did these types of game
Yeah.
drives and they took you to different locations within the park?
Yeah. So the usual schedule when you're on safari is you wake up in the morning, have your breakfast, which is usually sort of a buffet style at the lodge. Then you pack up and you go into the park and do a game drive,
Oh, okay.
because the animals are most active early in the morning and late in the afternoon. During the midday sun, they're hiding and finding shade, and it's harder to see them all. But the purpose of this trip was because this time of year is the great wildebeest migration. And
Okay.
that was the reason we went to Kenya. That was the reason we chose when we did in July. As you can imagine, you can never guarantee you're going to see certain animals when you get somewhere, right? But we timed it perfectly that the wildebeest started to arrive about 13 days before we got there. So when we got there in the Masai National Park, there were millions of wildebeest.
Wow.
As far as the eye could see, side-by-side wildebeests. So they go between the Serengeti and the Masai Mara.
Okay.
And so this time of year, they're coming to the Masai Mara and they're leaving the Serengeti. And then in the spring, they will leave the Masai Mara and they go to the Serengeti.
That's it for part 2 of my interview with Lisa Watson regarding her trip to Africa. Stay tuned for next episode where we'll finish up with part 3 and talk about her trip to Zanzibar.
Los Algodones, known as Molar City, hundreds of thousands of Americans who are coming here to receive excellent dental care. You don't have to fly into Mexico. You don't even need a passport. We'll pick you up and bring you down. We only work with the top 1% of dentists in Mexico. All our implant work comes with a 3 to 5 year guarantee. We negotiate all pricing for you up front. With HibiDoc, you don't need to become a dental expert. You get the best care at the best price, total peace of mind.
Thank you for watching this month's episode of Senior Travel Adventures, where adventure doesn't retire, it rewires. I'll see you on the trail. Take care.